Good afternoon. Acme pollution inspection. We're cleaning up the world. And we thought this was a suitable starting point. Oh dear me. I'm terribly sorry. The Vauxhall Astra H Twintop. Is it a coupe? Is it a cabriolet? Is it worth buying? Should you care? Why? Let's find out, shall we? Vauxhall, proceed.
We're together when we're together. Something big is happening among us. It's not as if we don't have to deal with our shortcomings. It's not as if we don't have to wipe away the tears. From time to time we wouldn't lie. And here we are, we'll never be the same. And on the screens of our lives flash words of good songs that we've not yet sung. And we're not worried about the future, and we're not guilty about the past. We're pressing on together, and it's a joy that we're
So welcome to this rather impromptu episode of Two Jacket Reviews. Today we are in Warwickshire, and the car we were originally going to film today has broken down. So welcome to my 2008 Vauxhall Astra Twintop 1.8 design. And thanks once again to Mr. Franks, my usual videographer, for filming this today. So thanks, Mr. Franks. Thanks. Before we get too much into the detail of this wonderful 2008 Vauxhall Astra Twintop, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. To like this video and leave a comment below. It really helps us out and allows us to make these episodes a lot faster. So the Vauxhall Astra Twintop was introduced in 2006 and ran until about 2011. It wasn't exactly parallel with the Astra H on which it was based, also known as the Mark V Astra. This is the 1.8 design model, which was top of the range, and it has lots of nice features like this lovely sport button. The wheels on this car are a little bit, shall we say, large, and so the ride's a bit firm. I do apologise for that. The engines available in the Vauxhall Astra Twintop were a 1.6 litre with 113 brake horsepower, a 1.8 litre with 140 brake horsepower standard, like this one. Those are both General Motors Family 1 units. There was also a 2 litre turbo with 200 horsepower, that one was, and a 1.9 diesel with 150 horsepower. However, I'm not allowed to talk about that on this channel. This car has actually been lightly modified. It's got a tubular sports manifold on the exhaust, and so it sounds really good. You will have probably heard the car set off a little bit earlier on in the review. That gives me maybe 10 more horsepower and slightly better economy. Talking of economy, this car, I think I'm getting about 30 to 35 miles per gallon out of it. 1.6 is probably slightly better in terms of the economy. However, if you have a 1.6, then that is a bit underpowered. Even this is, to be honest, a bit underpowered. If you really want to go crazy, then go for the 200 horsepower turbo, or should I say the diesel, although now I'm going to get censored, so I better stop talking about it. I do apologise if we get interrupted by sat-nav directions during the review. We haven't got a lot of time to film this one, and so I'm going to take Mr. Franks to the station, and I have to use that. So if that happens, then I apologise that we've had to prop it up there because I'm not very sensible. Sorry. The Vauxhall Astra Twintop does feel a lot more sporty than, say, the standard Astra H, particularly the 1.4 that my father-in-law has, and you can see that review on my channel if you want to look at it. This is a 1.4 active from 2010, although we think it was made in 2009.
Exit the roundabout onto A.
Thank you, sat-nav lady. So with this performance manifold and with the sport button, which I'm not using at the moment, which the design models had, this car will do 0 to 60 in just about 10 seconds. Standard with 140 horsepower, that would be about 11. So it's not the fastest car, but it's adequate. If you really want the performance, as I said, go for the 200 horsepower version. I've read some contemporary reviews of Vauxhall Astra Twintop from back in the early 2000s, and they all seem to say that this car doesn't have very nice steering. Well, you know, I've driven an Alfa in the last 24 hours and that has nice steering. This actually isn't that bad. I think it's a lot more communicative than the electrical power steering systems that a lot of modern cars use. The ride is quite firm with the 18-inch wheels we've got on this car and low profile tyres, although if you went for a different model, then you might get 16 or 17-inch wheels and those are a bit more comfortable. The trim levels available in the Twintop are just Twintop 1.8 or something like that, no model designation. Then the Air, the Sport, the exclusive Black Edition, the Design, and there was some also special editions. The Design was towards the top of the range. This is a Design model, and we've got things like cruise control, parking sensors, automatic lights, automatic wipers, and we've got keyless entry. That was an option. If you really want these particular things in a car, then you might have to look for a special model because a lot of these things weren't standard. I prefer the Design spec. These wheels I've got on this car, I know they don't look very nice. I do apologise. That's just the way the car came to me. If you see the external photographs, I'm afraid that's just the way it is. One thing to bear in mind though with a Twintop is they don't have anywhere near the sort of visibility of standard Astras, and so there's no rear wiper. You can't get one. It's a convertible after all. So that's worth bearing in mind. The other thing is the rear window's a little bit on the small side, so just be very careful when you're sort of changing lanes, like which I did there. I hate these 1.2 indicators, but they just come as standard in lots of Vauxhalls from the mid-2000s. There was nothing you could do about it. It's just something they decided they'd do. The driving position's quite comfortable. We'll get into more of that a bit later on. But I did about 150 miles in this the other day, and it's no problem really with the cruise control. Although there is a lot more kind of road and wind noise in this car than the standard one. Thank you, sat-nav lady. Because, you know, we've got an actual folding metal roof in this car. You see some of how that roof folds the cutaway that Mr. Franks will insert for me, which we filmed earlier on. I do like driving this car. It does feel very sporty, although because this is only the 1.8, it's better than the 1.6, but I just feel the power's a little bit more sort of show and no go. It does sound nice with this performance exhaust, but because the car's quite heavy, you do really notice that other people are going a lot faster than you are and making less noise. An MG3, for example, is about the same 0 to 60 time as this car. It's actually slightly quicker than a standard one. Isn't that crazy? So with the Twintop, it's all about the roof, obviously, because it's a coupe cabriolet car with folding metal roof. The switch for it is just up here. Now, if the roof doesn't work on a Twintop, it can be a very difficult job to get that fixed. There are a few specialists in the country who will help you out with that. They all have access to a system called Opcom or Voxcom, which is what Opel or Vauxhall, because this is an Opel after all, Vauxhall, same thing, they would have used originally on these cars, and they'll be able to reset things and check the wiring and things like that for you. So just when you're buying one of these, make sure all the roof works properly. That's the top tip I would have for you when buying a Twintop. In terms of how much one of these will cost you, they're not very expensive. Prices start from about £1,200 up to £2,000 to £2,500 for a really, really nice one. A lot of these have been modified, and that's no bad thing particularly. Mine's modified, just to get a bit more performance or, you know, a bit more individuality. With a family one engine like this, the 1.6 and 1.8 litre engines are family one engines in Astra Twintop. You really, thank you, sat-nav lady. You need to make sure that the timing belt and the tensioner, which is also the water pump in the family one engine, have been changed on a regular basis, even before the scheduled interval. I think that's 80,000 miles in 6 years. If you don't do this, and this happened to this very car, the water pump or tensioner, because they're the same thing, will pretty much pack up, cam belt will snap, and then the head gasket will blow, and then your car will literally be a sort of salvage rebuild type thing. They really don't take kindly to you missing cam belt intervals, which, you know, really you should be sensible and actually change your cam belt anyway. That's a public service announcement. Make sure you change your cam belt on a regular basis. The other main issue that these Astras have, thank you Sat-Nav lady, would be the thermostat housing. Thank you Sat-Nav lady. The thermostat housing of the engine. Now if that is leaking in your Astra, any Astra, not just a twin top, then that will cost you anything up to £350 to repair. So when you're checking the car over, checking the engine, really make sure you've not got any leaks coming from the cooling system, because they are a right pain to sort out. This is quite a fun car to drive. In comparison with the standard Astra H, the steering seems better for some reason, because the car's got a lot more weight. It is actually a tremendously fun steer, shall we say. Anyway, let's look at the Astra Twintop's more practical side, not that there is too much of that, and have a look in the boot. So if I walk round to the back of the car, open up the boot. For a cabriolet, this boot is absolutely enormous. It's 440 litres, which I think would have been the biggest boot in its class at the time. If you want to, however, put the roof down, what you need to do first of all is actually pull this cover in place. The roof won't actually go down unless you do this. And now you've got about 220 litres, so you have to make sure before you pull that switch that actually you've done that, otherwise the car will not actually let you do it. The tools and things for changing a tyre, this car doesn't have a spare wheel, so it's all under there. I'm not going to show you that. The boot's a bit filthy, I do apologise for that. We had to film this car as a backup today, so we haven't had time to clean it properly. And also one of the things that notice on this car, we've had this boot latch repaired, because if you drop the boot too heavily, these can actually break. So what I tend to do is very carefully just lower it down like that, and it drops itself, and that's perfectly secure. If I indelicately climb into the back, I'm not going to put that seat back because I wouldn't have any knee room at all if I did that. As you can see, I'm 5'11", my head is right up against the lining. I wouldn't have any knee room at all unless my passenger was really short, and it's not very comfortable in here. My lady wife did go in here for a little period, but it's not very suitable. Unless you've got the roof down, of course, that would be a bit better, but I wouldn't recommend carrying anything other than small children in the back of a twin top. Climbing in front of the twin top is a bit easier than climbing into the back. The headroom, I wouldn't say there's a huge amount of it. I'm only 5'11" and I'm almost touching the ceiling. And Mr. Frank sitting in the passenger seat, it's even worse than me because he's got, you know, a taller torso and things. The dashboard's very similar to the standard Astra H, and you know, you can look at the full review we did of that last year if you want to have a lot more information on it. But because this is a design model, we've got some interesting options on this car. We've actually got start stop, that was an option on design models. We've got the sport button here. Now that was standard on a sport model. It gives you a little bit extra performance. I personally never used that actually because it harms the fuel economy. And then we've got this standard mid-2000s Vauxhall layout here. It's actually quite easy to use. The only thing I would say, particularly if you've got, as I have, a Bluetooth kit here, so you can use the stereo with your phone, the heating ventilation controls at the bottom are very, very, very difficult to reach. Because of the driving position that I'm in, it's even worse. I have to stretch over here. Now, that's a common criticism for a lot of Vauxhall products from this era, and you do get used to it. It's not as bad as the MG3 was by any means, but it is something to bear in mind. because the Astra Twintop is a coupe cabriolet, there is no rear wiper, and the reheated window in this particular car, I don't know if it's the same on other Astra Twintops, I've only driven one other of them, is not very fast at all. It does work, but it's a little bit slow. So seeing out the back, I would recommend getting a car with the optional parking sensors like this one, and that's one of the reasons I bought this particular car. If you look up the side windows though, these are actually brilliant because they're so big and there's no pillar. Seeing out the side of the car is really, really good. This is very thick though, because this is the main strengthening point. If you were to roll the car over, not that I'm going to try to roll the car over, but these are very thick. So they do obscure your view when you're coming out of junctions. The windscreen's also very, very, very steeply raked. So you sit a bit further back than you probably would do in a standard Astra. And that does limit things too. And the bonnet slopes away like on a lot of modern cars. So it's not too difficult to park. It's actually a little bit easier than you'd imagine, but it's not the easiest car to see out of. So in terms of equipment, I've got an aux-in port down here. This is a later car, so it has one. We've got an aftermarket Bluetooth solution. Cruise control on this particular car, that was an option, it wasn't standard. The power locks, obviously, the start-stop button, that wasn't standard, but this car's got keyless entry. Now that is a pain. You would have heard when we started the car off originally, I had to hold it against here because you don't always have to do that, but it's quite a common issue on cars with keyless entry. One-touch indicators and wipers. I absolutely hate one-touch indicators and wipers. This is a terrible decision that Vauxhall made in the mid-2000s to put them in the Vectra and the Corsa and also in the Astra. And I don't like them at all. BMW did the same kind of thing. I'm not really a fan. Also, this car's got no engine temperature gauge at all. It hasn't got one. If I just switch that on, oh, I'm gonna have to do that again. That's the keyless entry being a pain. Right, never mind. Right, there we go. So if I just light the dashboard up here, you'll be able to see on here, I've got no engine temperature gauge at all. The warning lights all come on and you know, they will all go off again once I start the car up, but there is no engine temperature gauge. Unless you go into the settings here and press BC and fiddle around with it, which I'm not going to do, then that, you know, is a bit of a pain. Also, this particular car has an issue where we've replaced the header tank for the cooling system and the coolant temperature, coolant level sensor, and also the thermostat housing, and it still says low coolant every time we start it, even if we checked it this morning and it's perfectly fine. That's something that happens on quite a number of Vauxhalls actually, but I don't know why. The steering wheel itself, it's quite nice. This is a design model, so it has a leather steering wheel with these nice piano black bits here. It's nice and easy to use. The cruise control I find a bit of a pain, it's a bit stiff, but it, you know, it works. It's good to have it. With the instruments, they're very clear. Because it's a Vauxhall, 30 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour, very clearly marked with little red lines, which I find is good. The switches feel very nice. They're actually quite good quality in this car. We've got automatic lights and wipers as well, which is really good. It's very useful to have those in this car. The front and rear fog lights just here. That's easy to get to. The mirror switches are down here, but the controls are very logically laid out. And actually, the build quality seems very good. There's no squeaks and rattles in this car, other than what you normally get in a Twintop. And I do think, really, these cars are quite underrated in terms of their quality. Let's talk about storage in this car. So I've got a cup holder just here. That's actually got little rubbery things in it, so that will hold a variety of sizes of bottle. Normal handbrake, which is brilliant. If you want to use the Voxcom or Opcom software on a laptop, plug it into the car, then you can just remove this cover and plug it in down there. That's very handy. A lot of cars are not as easy to get to as that. Then we've got a little storage tray here. I put the wheel nut key there because if I put it in the glove box, it rattles around, so that's why it's here. The glove box itself is absolutely enormous. It's huge. The secret mission documents, which I'm afraid I don't have with me, would fit in there very easily. The manual's in there at the moment, and it's actually lit up very nicely. The storage pockets at the side, they're big enough for a bottle of water, I should think. There's actually an indentation here which would allow you to do that. The door handles themselves on here, they feel quite nice. They're nice and chromed, and they feel nicely damped, which is you know, not something you'd expect on a very mass market car like this. Overall, it's okay in here. The main issue, as I've said before, is the sort of lack of headroom and the slight visibility issues. In terms of ergonomics, the steering wheel adjusts for rake and for reach. I have it about there. This actually is a much better driving position than, say, an MG3 because of the adjustability of this wheel, although this car did cost well in excess of £20,000 when it was new in 2008, so you'd really expect it to be good. You can adjust the seat forward and back. There is a ratchet lever to go up and down as well. It's easy to get a good, comfortable driving position, although if I put this sun visor down like this, you'll notice that I really can't see anything going forwards. If on a sunny day you're a taller driver, what you might want to do is jack your seat up and try looking over the windscreen to give you a bit of extra visibility. So then, what do I think of the Vauxhall Astra Twintop? Well, my time with this car has been a lot of fun. If it's for summer and you can get the roof down and you can find one with a roof that works really well, then they're brilliant. Mechanicals they're okay, and make sure that you do proper checks before buying one. But with prices starting from about £1,200, they are actually a very cheap way into open-top motoring. Oh, excuse me, I'm terribly sorry. Calm yourself, Mess. This impulsive show of force was only to be explained.
Thank you for watching this episode of Tweed Jacket Reviews. My name is Joseph Lloyd. I'm an independent vehicle consultant. I find cars for people. Please subscribe to the channel if you'd like to do that. Don't forget to like this video and to leave a comment below. If you wish me to source a car for you, I'd love to do that. My website is www.lloydvehicleconsulting.co.uk. Please use the contact me page on my website to get in touch. I've got a Facebook page as well. It's facebook.com/Lloyd Vehicle Consulting. Thank you.
In 300 yards, at the roundabout, take the second exit onto Donathorne Avenue.